Sometimes I wanna put my life on hold and disappear into a welcoming sunset drop.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with improvising vocalist, composer, lyricist, and educator Fay Victor. She is always writing all the chasms and seams of music that are improvisational and conversational in nature. She has a unique approach and vision for the vocalist role in jazz and improvised music. And for over 20 years, she has released 9+ albums as a leader to critical acclaim, as well as a seminal sideperson project with leaders like Anthony Braxton, Roswell Rudd, William Parker, and many others. She's traveled well down her jazz road and has a lot of tales to tell. So get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
So again, Faye, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So let's dive right in here and talk about the Songs of Resistance, your latest album. Give me an idea of what the artistic vision for this project was.
The nice thing about working with Marc, and this was the first time we started collaborating around the development of this project, and Marc seems to really appreciate collaboration. So he has a skeletal idea of what he wants to do and how he wants to put it across. And then, we sort of collaborated with trying different ways of doing it. So I think that's how, I think that's for at least my contributions on the record. That's how it got together.
How do you view each of your albums and each recording that you go into? Is it a timestamp? Is it an evolution of your career? How do you view those?
Well, it's interesting. It's kind of gone back and forth. There was a period when I had a group period called the Fay Victor Ensemble, put out 3 records of all original music that was composed by myself and my husband, Joachim van Dijk. And that was really kind of seen as a project to kind of expose our music and expose our writing and hopefully have better and better performances, etc. But then there's been other projects where it's been, this is a document in time and not necessarily any sort of real agenda behind it one way or the other. Interestingly enough, I brought out a record on the label ESP Disc in 2018 called Wet Robots. And Wet Robots interestingly enough, it came in number 4 on the NPR jazz vocal category this year for 2018. That was sort of a project that was sort of a bit more of a loose collective, and we got an invitation to go into the studio. And without any real agendas, what would come out, and it came out to be a really interesting project, and that got a lot of attention. So, so it does vary, I would say.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in New York City. I'm a native New Yorker. I was born in New York Hospital, actually. For most of my childhood, I was raised on Long Island. And but I spent a lot of time also in the Caribbean where my parents were from, Trinidad and Tobago especially. So I spent a lot of time there as well.
So how did you get involved with singing and music, and more specifically jazz?
I came to jazz sort of late. I had, as growing up, actually I had a family friend who grew up down the street from me whose parents were really into jazz. Because of that, I knew names like Sonny Rollins and Miles Davis was quite famous, so everyone kind of knew him. But I started to know names like Sonny Rollins or John Coltrane. In fact, I grew up not too far from the Coltrane house, although I didn't know it existed there at that time. But I didn't really grow up with jazz. It was not really a part of the household I grew up in. But later on, when I came to singing, maybe sort of in my early 20s, I discovered jazz and was really attracted to it, especially how much it was important to have for everyone to develop their own personal sound. That was the thing that really, really resonated with me about the music, outside of it sounding great and being swinging and all of that. It seemed like the real innovators or the people, the musicians that were taken the most serious were the ones that had their own unique sound and unique approach to the music.
What singers growing up were you impressed with that influenced you?
Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight. She's still actually one of my favorites. Oh, God. Growing up, that's a really good question. And then I love groups. Actually, growing up, I would say outside of the ones I just mentioned, it wasn't so much individual singers. I would say it was more bands. I really liked the Carpenters, believe it or not. I thought Karen Carpenter was an amazing singer. But I really love bands like Earth, Wind and Fire and the Ohio Players and maybe sort of early jazz fusion things like or people like Earl Klug, and so also did like quite a bit of instrumental music. But I didn't start to get into seriously listening to singers as singers until I became a jazz vocalist.
Let's talk about you as a jazz vocalist. Have you always been at home on the stage?
At home on the stage? Oh my God, no. Absolutely not. No. That was actually one of the hardest things to get over, sort of pretty bad stage fright in the beginning. And that was really difficult, yeah. But then there was a certain point I realized, well, if I do this and if I perform enough, then I'll probably get, it might never go away, but I'll just get more comfortable. And that turned out to be the case. So at this point, I feel pretty comfortable. But that took a long time to work out. Yeah.
So in 20 plus years, 9 albums as a leader, what kind of positive changes have you seen, not only in your growth, but in the field of jazz?
Well, one of the things I'm really happy about, well, I'll talk about jazz vocals first, in particular, because although I don't always consider myself a jazz vocalist because I do a lot of different types of music, but it's definitely my home base and it's the tradition I'm from, and I feel like no matter what I do, there is that sensibility that's connected to it. What I've seen happen in the last, let's say, 15 years, certainly, is there's been an openness within the jazz vocal field and what's considered jazz and the kind of projects that jazz vocalists or vocalists coming out of the jazz sort of sphere are putting out. And I find that really inspiring. People are writing a lot of original music. People are putting interesting instrumentations together and trying different ideas of composition and improvisation, and I find all of that really exciting. And I consider myself one of the people, I mean, I certainly didn't start it, but certainly one of the people that has been a real advocate for that kind of expression outside of just performing standards, which are great, and I still love them, and I still perform them myself. But for me, essentially, it came down because I really, like I said, started out a tradition, and I really started out with singing standards. But at a certain point for me, it just was simply that I just couldn't say all the things I wanted to say. So I had to kind of figure out other ways.
So you've been able to work with folks like Anthony Braxton, Roswell Rudd.
Yes.
There's been a lot of people that you've been around. What do you learn from these veterans of jazz? Not only about as a singer, but as a human.
I've been thinking about this a lot just in general in the last year or so. I think what they all offer is they give permission. Yeah, I think that's if I could connect the people that I've worked with. I mean, I've actually been on a couple of projects of Roswell Rudd. I'm on his very last record called Embrace. People like Roswell, Anthony Braxton, William Parker, other musicians of that stature, I find the reason I feel connected to them, Misha Mengelberg, who was a mentor of mine, is that they gave permission. They were not musicians that said, you should stick to doing this, or you should, actually, they never even use the word should. It was more of sense, okay, figure out what you want to say and figure out how you want to say it, and maybe some guidance, giving some guidance as to how it can be done or how to at least open up some doors. But so I think that's what I've taken away as not only as musicians but also as humans, because I think the idea that as a human, another human, that you give another human permission or the sense that they are allowed to have permission is a way of sort of, giving someone hope and a sense of freedom and not restriction and limitation.
So up to this point in your career, you've been around for quite some time. Are you happy with where you're at, where things are going?
Yeah, actually. When I think about, everyone defines success in different ways. And for me, I'm a person and a musician that has to really has to kind of say things the way I need to say it. And that might be, a bit of hubris, but I feel like that's, as a person making statements, however you want to define them, I feel that if in my case, I feel like the statements need to really be coming from an authentic place and of my own voice. And in that case, I feel really successful. I pretty much work at this point only with the people I want to work with, which is quite a luxury. And I'm teaching a lot, and I'm also running workshops. And I just started yesterday. I'm on the faculty of the new school as of yesterday. So, and these are more things around, which is really, I feel really honored and humbled by that. These are things around the way I do things and the way I'm putting forth my work and my ideas behind my work. So I feel really fortunate, and I have nothing to complain about. Yes, I would love to have some more work. There's a project I love very much that I'm having a hard time getting a label to put it out. But for me, those are, at the end of the day, kind of minor things. I'm pretty happy with where things are. Yes.
One of the things that we learned so much from is seeing live shows. When you were getting into jazz and your head wrapped around it, what live jazz shows did you see that were really impactful, that made a big impression on you?
Oh, my God. Well, I got to see Betty Carter live a few times, and those were incredible experiences. I got to see Ella live once, which was amazing. It was like the most expensive concert ticket I ever spent. And it was a time when it was like I was just starting out, but I was like, the opportunity to see her was just too valuable. I had to do it. And she was there with Joe Pass, and that was an amazing thing to experience. And then I've seen one of my favorite groups in the world is a group called Instant Composers Pool. I remember that's a Dutch-based, that's actually a Dutch group. They've been around for 50 years, but I lived in the Netherlands for a while, and I remember seeing them for the first time, and that was mind-blowing and very influential to how I make music today. I remember amazing performance by the Nat Adderley Quintet a really long time ago. I remember with Walter Booker on bass, and I think Vincent Herring, and I can't remember who was on drums anymore, but that was pretty incredible. One of the most amazing is getting to see Jackie McLean, who I've been a fan of for so long, and getting to actually see him live at the Iridium not too long before he died, as it turns out, and getting to talk to him. And I had even recorded a song that I wrote lyrics, and I even had the opportunity to give that to him and talk to him about that. And it just, that was incredible. And the music was...
Yeah, that's quite a list. Great.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a dream tonight and you look up and you see yourself 20 years ago about when you started getting into singing. What advice would you give yourself?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I think the advice I give myself is just to be patient and not to worry so much, and not to, I think that would be the main advice, just to kind of relax and it will all work out in the end. The good thing about sort of kind of going your own way, you kind of, is that there's also sometimes I look back and I'm actually really happy about the choices I made, in some ways. But I think the advice would be just because don't worry so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do you love jazz?
I think I mentioned it earlier, partly. The main thing that drew me to jazz is that it was some music. I think that has changed, but certainly the origins of the music, the tradition of the music, was about personal expression. I mean, that's how I interpreted it. I mean, when I hear Charlie Parker as opposed to Dizzy Gillespie, obviously they play different instruments, as opposed to, let's say, Johnny Hodges and Charlie Parker, let's say. They sound completely different, and that's just mind-blowing to me and wonderful. that there's this music, that you have all this structure that you share, whether it's a bebop head or a standard, but yet everyone is allowed to have their own sound and their own way of expression, and that's valued. And I find that just such an amazing, to get into the roots of the music and coming out of the African American tradition and African American community, there's a lot about that too. But I think that's actually not the main thing that connected me to the music. It was this ability and this freedom to do that, and I just thought that was really, really powerful and inspiring.
So everything's going to come down to this. Everyone has a perception or a version of who they think you are. Your family, your friends, your fans, but you know who you are. Tell me, who do you think you are?
Who I think I am? I don't know. That's actually funny. Like, I don't know if I know who I am. I think I'm pretty headstrong and determined. I feel good when I feel my ideas. My ideas are valued, and I value my own ideas and feel, okay, well, I'm going to try this. Maybe it might be crazy, but I feel strongly about it. I'm going to try it, and I have a tendency to do that, and it's gotten me quite far. So I think I have a lot of tenacity. Yeah. Yeah. And I have learned, that's what I have learned to kind of not worry so much and just kind of relax about what's going to happen next. And I like to take a lot of risk. I think I'm an adventurous person. I'm always open to trying something interesting and new. Calculated, I think about it and see, okay, do I want to do this? That's what's wonderful about music, is it does keep you young in that way. Or at least I try to use it as a tool to just stay open.
I think that's a great answer. I think that's a great way to wrap everything up. Faye, thank you for taking some time out to talk about your life and music and spending some time with Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, Joe. Thank you so much for your interest, and I look forward to hearing this broadcast and more.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Faye for her music and her stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Tired thinking about being stressed out.
Neon Jazz.